The world waited for the projected results of the presidential election right alongside Americans. The question for much of the world now, how will foreign relations change under a Biden administration? For more on this question, I want to bring in former ambassador to China under the Obama administration, Max Baucus. He's also the longest-serving senator to represent Montana and joins us now from Bozeman. Greetings, Ambassador. I first want to ask about your personal connection to President-elect Joe Biden, and the two of you served together in the Senate. Do you think he will be able to work across the aisle to make deals as president, or do you think that the current political atmosphere makes that nearly impossible?
Well, that's the question. Will he be successful or not? His inclination is to negotiate, to compromise, get results. His inclination is not to attack, to vilify, to demonize anybody. That's not Joe Biden at all. I've known Joe for 40 years. We served together in the Senate, close personal friend. He came to our wedding in my home state of Montana when he was vice president, flew out. He's a very, very decent, good man. His values are unquestioned. His honesty is long. He'll be an excellent president to try to work things out. Now, the question is, will he succeed? That somewhat depends upon his negotiating skills. They're going to really be tested now more than ever before. But also, clearly, it depends upon the other side, in this case, probably Mitch McConnell. Will Mitch want to work with the vice president? I think initially Republicans and Mitch will want to work with the vice president. It's to their advantage to work. However, we have two Senate seats being contested in Georgia. If Republicans maintain control, win one or two of those races, then that's going to make it more difficult for Joe to govern. On the other hand, that could ironically be a gift, because if it's a Democratic-controlled Senate, because if it's a Democratic-controlled Senate, Democratic House, to be a great temptation to push too much through, to jam too much down the throat of the other side, which could cause a great consternation politically nationwide. So I do think most of life is tinged with some ironies. There's certainly irony here, but he'll try. He'll try his best. He'll clearly work with the Republican Senate. He'll work with the Democratic Senate. He'll work with business. Work with labor, and more importantly, as importantly, people worldwide, leaders of other countries, to get today breathing a big sigh of relief. Hey, this is a guy they can work with. I might say, too, I'm getting bombarded by messages from my Chinese friends who are very happy that Joe Biden won, not because they think he's a pushover, but rather because they admire him as leader of a democratic country. Democracy is prevailing now in America. They see a Biden presidency as more stable than Trump, predictable, honest compared with Trump. And that strengthens the hands of the reformers in China, and not the hawks, but the reformers. Trump strengthened the hands of the hawks and a lot of senators strengthened the hands of the hawks with very, very strong condemnation of China. President Xi has to listen to his people, and he's going to. And so it depends somewhat on what people in China think. If people in China like Biden, knowing he's not a pushover, knowing he's going to be tough, he's going to be strong, they still rather deal with him because he's predictable. That makes a difference in the minds of Xi Jinping.
Well, Ambassador, it's an interesting perspective, and to be honest, it's a different perspective that I think than most people might have about Xi Jinping's willingness to listen to his people. I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit more insight on what you think the top priority should be for the Biden administration in regards both to foreign relations more generally on the world scale, but also specifically in your area of expertise when it comes to dealing with China.
Well, when I say Xi Jinping will listen to his people, as you know, there's a Faustian bargain. If he can keep the people happy, then they don't question his legitimacy. So he'll do what he can to keep the people happy so they don't question his legitimacy. Biden foreign policy will have several components. First, it's one where he'll want to work with all countries, not only our allies, but also with all other countries in the world. Second, he will organize our allies in a more concerted effort with respect to China. and he will work on world issues like COVID, other world health issues. Kim Jong-un work with other countries to prevent Kim Jong-un from going too far. Iran, for example. So that will be his inclination, and it'll be one of working with international organizations, the WHO, the WTO, UN, IMF, NATO, other organizations. And sure, those organizations are going to have to be changed a bit because China is now such a big country, second largest economy in the world, that China should have a greater role in some of these areas. But the hallmark will be Joe Biden, fair, but tough and firm, but fair. One that you can trust, but he's not going to roll over and play dead. He's going to be very strong.
Well, let's get into one specific, which is Hong Kong. Obviously, the world has been watching that situation unfold there with protests, massive protests out in the street, with the mainland's crackdown on demonstrators, with the laws that they recently passed during the pandemic. What should Biden's approach be regarding Hong Kong?
Well, he should try to help Hong Kong enjoy its special status. It's not part of China, but related to China. He should try to help Hong Kong be a major financial center that it's been. I think that he should work carefully by suspending, say, the suspension that Trump enacted, and also down the road, not immediately, but down the road, maybe address some of those sanctions that the Trump administration addressed against some people in Hong Kong as well as China. Now, people know that Hong Kong is going to be turned over to the mainland in 2047. And also, the answer to your question very much depends on how China and Hong Kong implement their national security law. If they implement a very light way, that's going to help relations among all three countries. If, however, that national security law is implemented in a very harsh way, that's going to cause a huge reaction, and that's going to, frankly, make it very, very difficult for the people of Hong Kong. President Xi cares, but not very much about public opinion regarding Hong Kong.
Right.
Hong Kong is a core issue for Xi Jinping, very strong core issue for Xi Jinping. That was a summit with Obama and Xi in 2014. President Xi several times said to President Obama, "Oh, you Americans, what are you doing fomenting unrest down there in Hong Kong?" That was during the Umbrella Revolution. You could tell Xi Jinping cares a lot about Hong Kong, and he's not going to do. He will do what he can to make sure that Hong Kong does revert to China in 47.
It'll be a very delicate needle that he'll be trying to thread, as you're explaining it, both in Hong Kong and Taiwan and some of these other issues. Before I let you go, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about the Senate. And it's interesting, since you know Biden so well, and you know how he has operated as a senator, making deals, reaching across the aisle. If Republicans maintain control of the Senate, which they may do depending on what happens in those Georgia special elections, do you think Mitch McConnell, another person that you know, do you think that he will still be willing to work with Biden? Or, knowing what you know about both gentlemen, do you think that the offices, the positions that they will be holding in that moment, will interfere with their ability to actually do things like pass COVID relief plans, pass infrastructure relief, pass as Biden has had out on the campaign trail, Biden Care, his version of Obamacare 2.0?
Right. Well, Joe and Mitch know each other very well. They worked with each other for years and years. And there's a very strong bond of trust between Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell. Don't forget, back in the last administration, President Obama had a hard time getting an agreement with Mitch McConnell on the stimulus bill after the financial collapse. And he had to go to Joe. Said, "Joe, you can talk to Mitch much better than I can, so you go talk to Mitch," and they got a deal. And the thing to remember about Joe, he likes to get deals, but he gets deals in a positive way, in a way that you feel good about it. Not in a negative way, oh my gosh, I wish I could have gotten more, but in a more positive way. Yeah, initially, it looks like if it's Republican Senate, that it'd be difficult for a Biden to pass public option, certainly not pass Medicare for all. Difficult for Biden to rescind the Trump tax cuts. That's initial take on the Republican Senate. But they want to work with each other as well they can. You're correct. There are going to be immense pressures. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party is going to put immense pressure on President Biden. At the same time, the more conservative wing, the Republican Party, is going to enact great pressure. Some of this depends on the role of Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump going to be a major political player? Does he want to run for president in 24? Doubtful, but he could be a major
Still
political
a big
player.
Wild card.
And, exactly. And that's, it's hard to predict. On these instances where predictions are difficult, what do? You just do your best. You work hard for what you believe in. You do your best, and that's all you can really do, and be proud of it.
That sounds like good advice. Ambassador Max Baucus, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.